thank you everyone for taking part today. I'm super impressed and so thankful that you are carving out this precious time in your really busy work days to take part in yet another workshop on how to do CREST Awards and STEM projects, this time virtually. And I just wanted to, apart from saying thank you, I wanted to just give you a couple of reminders about stuff that you can do if you wanted to with your students. So in terms of CPD, you probably have heard me say this a couple of times, but you're all entitled to a free CPD course. You can do it yourself, or you can enroll some of your colleagues or staff. It's one per school, and they're all payable. They're from STEM Learning. Normally they're payable, but the GLA and STEM Learning are paying for them for you. So if anyone hasn't received the voucher code, then let me know and I will send it to you. I'm also going to send to all of you the link to the CPD courses brochure in case you haven't seen it or you can't remember where it is. But have a look at this this leaflet. It has all of the courses that you can take part in. The only thing is that you have to have taken part by the 31st of March. So we have funding until then, basically. So do have a look at what's still available. There's quite a few. Also, just wanted to give you a heads up that we are currently setting up the website for the STEM project exhibition. It's maybe less projects in your case. It's more the sort of activities that you've done with your students. If you want to have your students STEM experiments, if you wanted to take a picture of it and upload it to the website, we've got some really cool prizes that we're going to draw every month. So there's school shows from the Royal Institution. It's also just a chance for your pupils to see their project up on the mayor's website, and he's going to be looking at them as well. So that's something you can take part in if you wanted to, but more info to follow. I'm not going to take up any more time from this webinar. I'm just going to hand over to Naomi now, but I'm here if you have any questions. I've also got my piece of toast that I am planning to take part in the short experiment. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get started. So the point of this session really is to help you think about how you might be able to deliver your CREST SuperStar while still working remotely. So it could be that obviously we don't know when you'll be going back to school with all the children back in again. So it might be that during Science Week you want to do some activities with the children whilst they're still at home. Or it might be that going forward, you might want to do a remote science club. So it really is very flexible. You can use these resources and ideas in the way that you want to use them. So what I'm going to be doing is demonstrating a number of CREST activities. So we're going to do 8 activities, or at least talk about 8 activities, which is the number that they would need to complete to get their award. So these ones that hopefully you can see are really easy to do. Hopefully that will motivate you to sort of share these with your children and your teachers. What I'm also wanting to do this afternoon is model different ways that you can deliver it remotely. So there's going to be a number of different techniques that I'm going to be using to support you with that. So I'm going to do things in 3 different ways. Some of them I'm going to do as live demonstrations. So you may choose to, if you're doing live lessons, you can do a demonstration live so the children can then follow it and then carry out the activity in their own time and post those findings back on whatever school system you're using to share their work. The important thing is with the CREST Awards that they should be sharing their findings. So you do need to think about how they might do that. We're also going to be using some pre-recorded videos, particularly where a demonstration is going to take too long or it's too complicated. It's actually better to pre-record it because then you can cut out the bits that aren't relevant. So one of the activities this afternoon, we're actually just going to show the video rather than doing it live, and it'll become obvious why that is. And then we're also, that's where the toast comes in, and I do hope you've got your slice of buttered toast. and a bit of paper and a pen, and hopefully something safe to drop your toast on. We're actually going to do a live simultaneous investigation where we're going to gather all the results and look at them straight away. So 3 different ways. And as we're doing it, I'm going to talk you through the sort of technology I'm using as well, so that you can see how it's all done with very limited amount of tech. Just as a very quick reminder, for each of the activities in the CREST SuperStar, you've got these 2 resources that you can be using. You've got the organizer card, which is for you, the adults, to guide you through exactly what the activity is, what the resources you need, what do you need to do, and things like that. And then you've also got the activity card, which you might want to send out to the children in advance, or you might choose to do what I'm doing today, which is actually just sort of not screenshotting, snippy tool. We call it the snippy tool. I can't remember what it's called, where you can actually just cut a little bit from your computer and then you can make slides from that, which is the way that I'm going to be presenting it today. So the first activity we're going to look at is Fantastic Fingerprints. And this activity, as with all activities, it comes with a stimulus to get the children thinking. So you can see here we've got a little bit of a news article there. I'm just going to give you just a couple of minutes to scan that news article. Do apologize, my phone just happens to ring. It never rings, but of course it rings at this point. So so that sort of sets the scenario that we're sort of thinking about fingerprints, but the head teacher has sort of raised a little bit of a concern about, actually, are all fingerprints different? At this point in time, you might just want to have a little look at your fingerprints, and just have a little look at them, see whether my eyesight is not good enough to actually look at my fingerprints, but maybe you can, and you can identify what type of fingerprint that you have got. I'm very much in that sort of old, I have to sort of take my glasses off, put them back on again. But hopefully, and children are much better, they can see these things much better than we can. And then as far as the resources are concerned, I've picked 8 activities that are can be done very easily with resources from home. So I've just got a photo of the things that I'm going to be using here, but I've also just snippy tooled the kit, the resources from the activity card. And now I think I'm nearly ready to go on and demonstrate it. But first, just one last thing. The activities, the children activities does all have the instructions there. And that may be sufficient for some of your children, but for others, you may actually want to demonstrate it remotely. So that's what I'm going to do now. I just need to readjust things so that you can see what I'm doing, and I'll show you the picture of this in a little while. So to make your finger think, first you need a pencil, and you rub as hard as you can onto the paper. Press really hard, and we're basically putting lots of graphite onto the paper, and then you rub your finger into the graphic there to make your fingertip really mucky. Then you get a piece of sellotape, which you just put sticky side up onto the paper, and then you roll your finger across the sticky tape, and then you can stick that down onto the paper. And I'll just try and hold it up, and maybe you can see that fingerprint there. So that's one method that you can use. Or you can try using a little bit of cocoa powder. I've just put my cocoa powder into a little cup there. I should probably use a different finger because I didn't bring anything to wipe my fingers with. So you dip your finger into the cocoa powder, brush off any excess bits. We don't want a great big fingerful of cocoa powder. And then again, get yourself a piece of sellotape. Roll again your finger across and stick that onto your paper. Again, I'll just hold it up. You can see there that I haven't got a great fingerprint there. I think I had too much cocoa powder on my finger, so there's rather a lot of splodges. So I've just demonstrated those two techniques, and then the children would be able to follow that and hopefully do their own. So this is what the setup was for that particular activity. Obviously, this is a photo we staged a few days ago, but you can see there that I've actually got two devices in front of me and they're both logged into the meeting. So the laptop, we're using the camera on the laptop, and that's used to film the demonstration. And it's on a box. You can see there it's sitting on the jigsaw box, just to lift it about 6 centimeters off the table. And then the screen has been brought forward so that we're looking at the table surface where the demonstration's happening. The mobile phone is simply being used so that I can see what you are all seeing, because sometimes it's difficult for me to see what's on the laptop screen when it's in that particular position. So I can look at the phone and check that all those aspects that I wanted you to see are actually visible. So what the children might want to then go on and do is actually look at their own different fingerprints. Firstly, perfect one technique that they're going to use, which they may try to use different materials as well, but really refine their technique. Then they can look at their own fingerprints and see whether they're all the same or whether they're different. And then they might want to start collecting fingerprints from different people and start to see how similar or different they are. As a reminder, the theme for British Science Week, if you're thinking of engaging in that, is innovating for the future. And I'd like you just to think about, and do please post things onto the chat for me. What do we currently use fingerprints for? And what might we use them for in the future? Okay, thank you. So do keep posting, but there's a lot using them for identification. Because they are unique, we can use them for identification, such as unlocking your phone. They can be used for banking, making artwork. That's a really interesting one. Thank you, Megan. We can use them for payments, all sorts of things. So what else might we use? Oh, replace all passwords. That would be great. I am continuously struggle to remember what password I put in for different things. So it'd be really good to use that instead of PIN codes. Vaccine passports, lovely idea. Anything where you use a password, basically. Yeah, why bother with passwords? Let's just have our fingerprints. So thank you very much. There's some lovely ideas there of things that we might use our fingerprints in the future. And that's the sort of thing, as far as British Science Week is concerned, just get into children to think about, how are things going to change? What do we think it's going to look like in the future? So the next activity that we're going to look at is investigating ink. For this activity, the way that it's presented in the original CREST activity is probably not particularly appropriate or easy to do for the children at home, because it involves presenting a ransom note to the children that's been written in a certain type of ink, and then they explore a range of pens to try and work out who's created the ransom note. That would involve a lot of parental support at home. So I thought an alternative approach would be to think about using ink and particularly chromatography, which is what we're going to be looking at for making artwork. So there's just a couple of examples there of how we might use chromatography to make artwork. And again, just to show you that the resources, again, are really, really simple to have. And I'm just going to take you through the demonstration now. So chromatography is really easy. You just need some paper, a pen, and some water. I'm going to cut a strip of paper so that it will fit into the container that I've got. So I've just cut some that's a suitable width. And then what we need to do is put a dot about 3 centimeters from the end of the paper. You can see that there. And then we put the end of the paper, the tip of the paper, into the water, but you keep the dot above the level of the surface of the water. And then I'm just going to use a paper clip just to hold that in place. And hopefully, if I just hold it a little bit closer up there, you can start to see change happening. And that is basically chromatography. Obviously, this is one of those examples where actually I don't necessarily want to spend hours with the children looking at it. So here's my Blue Peter job where I've already done one earlier. Okay, so this is my results from earlier. That's actually 2 with the same pen, and you can see you get a very similar pattern of colours from that. And that's what chromatography is all about. It's about looking at the different colours within those pens. When I presented it just then, I just said paper and pen. And the activity that you ask the children to do might be to find the best type of paper to use and the best pens to use. The paper needs to be absorbent because it's as the water's rising up and being absorbed that it takes those colours different distances. And it does need to be a water-soluble pen as well, just so that you're aware of that. Basically, just try a number of pens out and see what happens. So the setup for that was very similar. It's pretty much identical as the Fantastic Fingerprint. The only difference is that the angle of the laptop was slightly more open because more of the demonstration is actually happening above the surface of the table. Okay, on to our third activity. So this is now racing rockets. And again, it comes with the stimulus there that the children are going to join a competition to design the best rocket. And we'd probably start with some sort of discussion around what do we know about rockets, really getting the children to think about what they already know. That's part of developing their science capital. They don't come to it with nothing. So we might talk about the shapes, what a rocket's used for, all that sort of thing. And then we want to get on to making it, again, made with very simple resources, as you can see there. And I'm just going to stop my screen share again so you can see me make it. So all you need to make your rocket is a rectangle of paper, which I'm just going to cut at a fairly random size. And then you carefully roll your rectangle of paper around a pencil. And then with a piece of sellotape, use the sellotape to seal all the way down the edge of your rocket so that you've got something like straw. and then you squeeze one end and keep that closed, and again use another piece of sellotape to seal that up. And that is your rocket. To launch your rocket, you simply pop it onto a straw and then blow. And that is your rocket launched. So you can see there that the setup is exactly the same as for the investigating ink, slightly higher screen so that you can see the things that are happening above the table. So once the children know how to make a rocket, then they can start thinking about how they're going to, what sort of style of rocket they're going to make. They can think about what they're going to change, how are they going to make it better? Do they want to add fins to it? Are they going to put weights on it? So we'd be encouraging the children to make as many different rockets as they can and test them all out. And then we want some feedback from them if we can. So perhaps in this instance, we might ask them to create a small video that they would then be able to share. For this to count as one of the activities, what evidence would need to be recorded? They are year 2. To be honest, as far as that evidence is concerned, we want the children as part of a CREST activity. Part of it is that they do communicate their findings. If they're able to communicate it with you in some way, then that's great. If they've communicated it to their families, then that's great. I wouldn't rule a child out that just can't share with you what they've communicated if you feel confident that they have done the activity. But for this activity, I thought it might be nice if the children were able to make a short video of what they did and how they carried out their investigations. So I'm just going to play a quick video. Elizabeth, could you just mind putting your finger up if you can actually hear it? I just want to check that. I made a number of different rockets using different sized paper. So some of them were longer, some of them were shorter. Some of them I rolled more tightly, so they were a tighter fit on the straw, and some of them were looser. I tested them all out. When I was testing them, I stood behind a line and blew as hard as I could, and then I measured the distance. This was my best rocket, and I'm just going to show you how far it went and how I measured it. So I used a tape measure from where I was standing. That's 150 centimetres. That's another 110, so 150, 250, 260 centimetres my rocket went. Okay, so that's an example where actually you might want to show the children something that they might want to produce. But, you know, they can produce what they want. It could be a series of photographs. Who knows, they may even post their rockets to you. Let them be creative. You just want them to be sharing what they've been doing. So that was sort of a trial and improve. For your younger children, they'll just do it as trial and error. That one was better than that one. Let's see what I can change next. For your older children, particularly, I'm thinking year 5 and year 6 children, they might want to do it more as a comparative test. So they choose one variable and change that variable and then see that the difference that has made. So depending on the age of your children, they may carry it out in very different ways. A couple of other activities that we're not actually going to do, but are very similar to that in as much as they can just try and improve. One of them is Crafty Rafts. So this is about trying to make a raft that is able to hold something. So you can see the resources that we've got there are just basically paper, things to stick the bits of paper together with. You notice there's no scissors there. Everything is just folding and attaching. And then we've got marbles or coins or anything that they can find to add to the weight, to add to the raft to test it. And we had a go, and with varying degrees of success. You can't actually see there, but perhaps the one on the left-hand side was floating. The one on the right-hand side is actually now pretty much sunk. We put too many marbles in there and it's sunk down under the water. So that's, again, just a really nice, easy activity that the children can do with whatever they can find. A second one like that is the bridge blunder, where they've got to try and create a bridge using a set number of pieces of paper. And it's just to span a gap of about 20 centimeters, as you can see there. So we just create the gap by putting some books there, using a ruler to measure it, and then just using the pieces of paper. So the one on the left-hand side there, we just used all the pieces of paper on top of each other. And actually it was not a very good bridge at all, because it just sagged in the middle, and you'd basically get wet feet if that was going across a river, or you'd be run over by the cars. So then a little bit of an adaptation that made it slightly better was to roll a couple of sheets of those paper and put them along as sides to the bridge. And you can see now that my bridge is able to stay up out of the water off the road below it, and actually was able to carry a little bit of weight as well. But that's something that as they're going through, they can just explore different ideas, and then they may just send you a photo of the best bridge that they've made. They might want to send you a series of photos to show the successes and the failures, but it's very much can just be with photographs that perhaps their parents can help them to make. So the next activity that we're going to look at, so far I've been doing live demonstrations for you, but this one is going to be slightly different. It's a sticky problem. So this is all about making glue. And again, we might well start with a discussion about, are glues all the same? What's the important properties of glue? We've all experienced glue, so the children already know something about this. We just want to engage with their thoughts. And then we have the stimulus, which is this question, this letter from I Need a Bond. So they're going to be using the glue to make a go-kart. It's got to be some strong glue. It's got to be waterproof because it might be raining. And also we don't want it to make a mess of our clothes. Again, it's using very accessible resources that most of the children will have in their houses if their parents do some sort of cooking, which hopefully they do. And I've selected the resources and which I felt were easier. So in the, you can see there, it talks about a funnel, while actually we're just using a sieve because that seemed like something the children were more likely to be able to access. So we've just adapted it a little bit for this home learning exercise. And there are 3 different recipes that the children can try out. So they've got the recipe, the ingredients and the method in there. And because it takes a long time to do some of these, we have pre-recorded them. These videos you will have access to. So if you would prefer to just use my demonstrations of them, then rather than creating your own, then they will be available to you, and we'll put the link on the chat at the end. So this is glue A. This is the quickest one to make. To make your first type of glue, you just need flour and cold water. Add 1/4 cup of water to 1/2 cup of flour and mix until smooth. Keep mixing to get all the lumps out the best that you can. Glue B is, I'm not going to show the video for that because actually it's quite a long video. I'm just going to show you the first part of glue C because that shows how something happens over a period of time. So the video stops and then starts again. To make your 3rd type of glue, you need vinegar, hot skimmed milk,
bicarbonate of soda and cold water. You'll need an adult to help you make this glue as well because of the hot milk. So firstly, pour 2 tablespoons of vinegar into a cup. And add half a cup of hot skimmed milk. I've heated mine up in the microwave and give that a stir. Then let the mixture sit for about 3 minutes. Next, you need to...
Okay, so for that one, obviously, we didn't really want to sit there for 3 minutes and watch it. And then also when I go on to sieve it, that also takes a period of time. So the video there just contracts it and gives you the key important bits that you need. So once the children have made their glue with the support of their adults, because some of it involves hot stuff, then they then need to test their glues. And they'll need to think about how they're going to test it. So they might want to try using each of those glues to stick different materials together, perhaps using paper, using card, using some plastics. And then also think about what happens if it's waterproof. Is it waterproof? So let's see what happens if you make it wet. Once you've stuck it, does it still stay sticking or does it come apart? Or can you get it out your clothes was the third test they might want to think about. And here we've got, and again, you can see I've just snippy tooled from the children's activity, different examples of how the children might go about it for them to think about, but obviously they're free to think for themselves how they want to test it. You may choose to give them guidance on how to record their results, or you may just ask them to record it in whatever way you want. You could ask them if it's appropriate for them to write a letter back to Oneida to share what they found out about those glues. If they want to go on and do more, there are lots more glue recipes that they might find online, and they can try some of those out as well. Now we come to the very exciting part with the tumbling toast. And what we're going to do before we start is just think about, have you ever dropped toast? Which way did it fall? Murphy's Law, what do you know about that? I'm not going to ask you to put lots of things on the chat just at this moment, but this is the discussion that we'd be having with the children, and then thinking about, is there a way of testing this? So you can see here that somebody's got that. Councillor, I'm in a quandary. I do love the names they've come up with. And basically, every time the toast slips off the plate, it lands on the floor and it's butter side down. Well, that's just Murphy's Law. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. But let's actually test that out and see whether that is what actually happens. So hopefully you've got your resources. You've got your piece of buttered toast buttered on one side, your plate, a pen and paper, and something that you're going to be able to drop your toast onto. I need to move myself very quickly into another area. So bear with me for a moment. Oh, I do apologize. So my colleague has posted the Google link, which you're going to use to record your results. So you should be able to access that. I'm just going to go out to the kitchen and then I can demonstrate to you what we're all going to be doing. So you just basically take your piece of toast and pop it on your plate, and then hold your plate sort of waist high and just carefully drop it off. And that one ended butter side up. So I've just got myself a little table here, which I'm going to record that. So that one ended butter side up, and I will just put the little tally there. And then I will go again. Make sure you put this toast butter side up to start with. Why would you put it butter side down on your plate? Are you mad? And then hold it at your waist again, drop it off. That one ended butter side down. So I'll just record that on the right-hand side there. So if you can now get your piece of toast and do your investigation, can you try and do it 10 times? And then once you've done it 10 times, hopefully the Google form will be ready by then, and you'll be able to post your results onto the Google form. Okay, so when you're ready to post your entries, you should be able to see the screen like this. So you just need to choose how many times your toast landed butter side up, and then how many times it landed butter side down, and you put your results in there and submit it. I can see so far that we've had 2 responses so far. Ignore what the screen at the moment. If you're still doing your bit of toast, then please feel free. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. But what I'm going to be able to do is share this data, and we can talk about it simultaneously. Just going to wait just a couple more, about another 30 seconds, just in case there's people busy still putting their data in. You see it suddenly start getting a bit more of a flurry. Okay, if you're still inputting, that's absolutely fine. What the Google Forms does is collating all that for me. What's interesting is the data it's showing me here really isn't very useful. Why would we want to be presenting this as a pie chart? That's really not very helpful at all. But what is quite nice about the Google Forms is that you can then actually open it as a spreadsheet, and you can start to see everybody's data there. And if we're looking at that, what I can actually do is just add a quick sum in there. So it adds it all up for me, and I don't have to do it in my head. So 38 times it arrived butter side up. And let's see how many times it arrived butter side down. 50. So from that, it looks like Murphy's Law is a thing, and that actually, if it will go wrong, it is more likely to go wrong than go right. But I think that's a really nice way of gathering data instantaneously and actually being able to look at that data together. And I think that's also, whilst it's nice to do this for remote learning, actually, if you've got iPads or laptops, things like that in the classroom, it might be, again, a nice, easy way of children inputting data really quickly, and then you can actually manipulate it. So I'm thinking particularly things that involve the children looking for patterns, where really we need to present it as a spreadsheet, as a scatter graph. This is a really nice way because it could automatically generate a scatter graph for you. So that's just a little top tip on how to use this post-lockdown. So let's just go back to my screen share. Oops. I hope you enjoyed that little bit of active engagement. It's nice to get up and move around. So I think we're probably on our last activity now. We've already done our little bit of reflection on the data. But what you might want to do, that was just testing Murphy's Law, but the children might then want to go on and extend this further. Does the butter make a difference, or does toast just always flip over? So you could repeat it with non-buttered toast, and you might just need to put a cross on one side and see whether the cross tends to lend butter side down, in which case it's nothing to do with the butter, it's just the way it falls. There might be other things that they want to go on and explore. What happens if you put jam on it? It's even stickier now, it's more likely to make a mess. Does that mean it's more likely to land face down? Does Murphy's Law make things even worse? What about if you dropped it from different heights? So there's a range of different things that they might choose to go on and explore. So just thinking about what other things they might investigate. When I was doing that live demonstration, you can see we've had to set things up slightly differently there. So you're actually getting it from my view there. And the mobile phone on the stall is being used to film the test. The reason we had to use a mobile phone is because that will give you portrait rather than landscape. On the whole, laptops aren't very good. We tried putting the laptop on the side, but it just automatically readjusts it. So the mobile phone's just propped up, standing on its short end on a stool about the appropriate height. We've got a nice swivelly stool that we could adjust up and down for that. And the laptop you can see on the left-hand side was for me to use so that I could see what you were seeing. It was really too difficult for me to see on the mobile phone, but with my laptop there, I could see that. So the very last activity that we're going to do is a Superspinup. And you may well have done this as part of courses in year 5, I think, yes, year 5. So we're not going to be able to make a helicopter. That is an unrealistic dream, but we can make some spinners that replicate the movement of the helicopter. So that's what we're going to do. And we might want to try making a range of different helicopters. For this activity, it suggests you can give the children a template. What I'm going to do is, again, just model how to do it. All you need, you've seen all these things before: paper, scissors, pencil, paperclip, ruler, and something to time it with later. Oops, let's stop the screen share. Okay, so let me just get myself set up. Right, so first you need a rectangle of paper. I'm going to make mine 7 centimetres by 14 centimetres. So I'm just going to measure and mark that out. And I want this to be 14 centimetres long. And then I just need to cut that out. Just move my screen a little bit so you can see. And that will be the basics of my spinner. But the children might want to try different sizes, pieces of paper, or it might be the style that they make now. So first we need to decide how long to make the blades of the spinner. And the spinner blades will be here. So I'm just going to draw a line down to the depth that I want my spinners to be, my blades to be, and I will just cut down there. So now you can see I've got 2 blades there, and I'm going to then decide how deep to make the body. So I'm just going to draw a line across there. That's where I'm going to fold it, and I'm going to have my body that deep there. And then I need to think about the tail. And again, I'm just going to mark off how wide I want the tail to be. And I'll be cutting down here so that I can, nope, I'm actually going to cut here, and then I'm going to fold along there. In an ideal world, I'd be using dotted lines to show where I'm folding and solid lines to show where I'm cutting. But this is certainly one of those ones that you might want to video, and so the children can go back and watch it again and again. So I'm now just going to fold 1 blade forward and 1 blade backwards. And then 1 part of the tail gets folded in and the other part of the tail gets folded in. And then I'm just going to add a paper clip to the bottom just to weight it down a little bit, and that is my spinner. I'm not going to run out the kitchen and demonstrate that because that's going to be too confusing. So I'm just going to play the demonstration for you. If you blink, you'll miss it.
This is how you drop the spinner.
And it's gone. Okay, that one we just decided it would be easier to video it first. Oh, and you get it again. So we've demonstrated lots of different techniques there that hopefully you'll be able to use either for doing your CREST Awards with your children, or perhaps there's things that you might want to, little techniques that you want to pick up for your normal everyday teaching. So we had some that were done as live demonstrations, the fantastic fingerprints, investigating ink, and the racing rockets and super spinners. And then we had those pre-recorded videos where making that glue was quite complicated, so they probably need to watch the video and do it with the video. Also, it was rather too long, so we needed to cut the time out. And then we also had the simultaneous live investigation with the Tumbling Toast. So hopefully that's given you an idea of how these CREST Awards can be delivered for the children at home without too much effort. And to make it even easier for you, we have actually recorded all those demonstrations already. So if you would rather just give the children the link to the website there, or if you've got some techie staff that you can record that little bit, then you can see there all those different activities, and we've also put the time codes in so that you can find the activities nice and easily or direct the children to them. So just in the last couple of minutes, if anybody's got any questions or ideas or things that you would like to share, then please post them onto the chat. And basically, good luck. You're all doing a fantastic job of trying to educate these children at home. It is really difficult. We're all learning all sorts of new skills. And so hopefully you might be able to engage the children with some of these CREST Awards and hopefully get their their award funded by the Mayor's office, which would be fantastic. Thank you very much for giving up your time and joining us this afternoon. And who knows, I will see you again at some point in the future. Okay, so thank you very much and bye-bye.